Mayoral candidate Stephen Jackson. I was going to say the last of our candidates. Well, the last of the candidates that we've heard from who are booked. We had Adrian on Monday, and we had Mr. Jim and Leo yesterday. And this morning in studio is candidate Stephen Jackson. Welcome back to KEEL, young man.
Good morning, Erin and Robert, and thank you for having me back. And good morning, Matt, as well.
Let me find, hold on a second. I saw this on your page last night, and I wanted to start here, and I hope I can find it rapidly.
Okay.
There's the one about pre-K. We can talk about that later. I cannot find precise. Here we go. It was a response to one of your Facebook followers about you can only speak to the strengths and assets that make you a viable candidate. Here you go. I have articulated a comprehensive plan that lays out a vision for moving Shreveport forward, as well as a track record of standing up and advocating for all. If anybody doesn't know, here's your chance. Give you about 90 seconds to 2 minutes. What is your comprehensive plan to move Shreveport forward?
Well, yes, we've articulated comprehensive plans. We call it our opportunity agenda. I believe Shreveport has to be positioned as a city of opportunity. So we talk about how do we revitalize our economy with jobs, economic growth, net economic growth. How do we invest in our communities through home ownership, clear out the blight and dilapidations that are there, stand up for our medical school and health center, and how do we get a handle on crime? And so those things with so much more, rolling out pre-K for all, investing in our local workforce economy, and so making sure that we have something for all individuals to succeed.
You know, Erin has asked everybody that's come in the following question, so I'm going to steal your question.
Go ahead.
That's a pretty heady agenda. That ain't cheap. We're not a city flush with cash.
Absolutely.
What? Where's that money coming from?
Well, I tell people that budgeting is about priorities, and if you look at where your priorities are, you make the resources and allocations available. You don't have to do everything that I've outlined. electstephenjackson.com. We've identified a funding source for it. We don't call for any new taxes. We don't call for any new fees as well.
You've identified a funding source.
Correct.
Which means you found ways to trim the budget.
Correct.
Give me some examples of where you're going to trim the budget.
Before you answer, pardon me, because of the three candidates we've had in, I think all three have called for an independent audit of City Hall and the budgeting and all the departments. And what we infer from that is that they think that Shreveport city government is run inefficiently. And I think Leo's was mismanagement and waste.
Correct.
Is there in your mind mismanagement and waste? Do you think that the monies could be better spent?
Right. I think we have an issue of priorities. I think even the current administration has said when they ran in the previous election that there was inefficiency and waste. And when they got there, they realized it wasn't as much waste as they see. And to call for a third-party audit when the city's internal auditors already do third-party audits is just more waste and more government spending. So what they're saying is they want to duplicate what's already being done. We pay people now in the city's internal auditor's office to do that right now.
Let me get one more here quick.
Go ahead.
Because you hear Trump talking all the time, or conservative pundits always talking about deep state, i.e. the government within the government. Is at virtually every level of government is the bureaucracy, and maybe in Shreveport city government too, you would know because, well, you're on the Cattle Commission now. But the point is there sort of a Shreveport bureaucracy deep state that might be really difficult to unravel?
I would say no. The men and women who go to work every day to move the city forward and work for the city of Shreveport, they put in their best. And so I don't want to take a knock at them or the individuals who may be sort of stuck in their ways of doing things. And we need to make sure that they understand what the vision and how we move Shreveport forward and how their job performance heavily relies on that. Then yes, and there may be individuals who may have to be asked to leave, but to categorically cast that net over everybody who's a city employee, I think is unfair to those
give me
city
some.
employees.
Let's get back to the
Correct,
the
yes.
cuts. Give me some specific areas you think we can trim the budget.
Correct, and I wouldn't necessarily say trim. I think redirect. I often tell people the $6 million that we're using every year to do the patchwork street repairs that we see. We're maxing out the SWEPCO franchise fee, which I think is not the best use of it. We're maxing that out. That's monies that can be allocated and put aside working with the city council to do some other things.
That's not bond issue money that's got to be used a certain way?
No,
Okay.
What you can do is you can long-term bond that $6 million out over a period of time. Or what you can do is you can reallocate those dollars that are unused over a period of time to go to other priorities. And so that's one of the first things that I think we can take a look at is how we're using that $6 million in additional street special revenue fund. We can look at some things such as what are we doing with regard to our water and sewer consent decree projects. Those are things where you see change order after change order after change order. A project is bid on for $3 million, and by the time it finishes, it's $7 million.
Let me ask you this. A gentleman came before the city council this week, and he stood up, and he's a coach for SPAR, a football coach, and he begged the council and the mayor. He said some of our teams, our SPAR league teams, play their games in Bossier. Stephen, that sounds absurd to me.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate.
It sounds like we don't have enough. What are we going to do to solve that? We don't want these kids to leave Shreveport to go play ball in Bossier.
Right. Well, what we have to do is we have to create an environment where we're working to update all of our facilities. We did the $750 million bond package, and that just wasn't enough. And so what we have to start doing is looking strategically as a community on what facilities do we need to upgrade? What do we want? As opposed to having conversations about a sports complex out on the Cross Bayou edge of town that's not going to provide anything for anybody, and it's going to cannibalize what we already have.
You've been famous as saying Superman's not coming.
Superman is not coming.
The days of us attracting a General Motors or an AT&T or a big company like that or a Amazon distribution complex. You really think there's not a chance for this city to attract something like that?
Well, I'm not saying that there's not a chance. What I'm saying is we have to understand that the way in which productivity and manufacturing is done now, a lot of these jobs are now automated. And so there's a machine doing a lot of the work that individuals did 15, 20, 30 years ago. And so we have to come to reality with that. Now, that's not to say that those jobs don't exist anymore, but they are few and far between. And what we have to do is, part of my priorities is making sure we have a conversation about that General Motors plant. I'd love to see the Port of Caddo-Bossier take it over as opposed to having our volunteer industrial development board work with it. Eric England out at the Port of Caddo-Bossier, they do a great job at attracting industrial enterprises here, companies here. And so why would we just allow, and I think the industrial development board, they're open to having that conversation. Eric is open to having that conversation, but we have to have individuals who are dedicated every day to going out and marketing and recruiting companies to the General Motors plant. So I'm not saying that it's not here, but to just assume that when Amazon says we have an RFP, that they're going to automatically start looking at Shreveport. One of the problems with the General Motors plant is how it's built. It's not built up to modern day manufacturing standards. It's a great plant, but the Toyota plant couldn't come here because the assembly line is totally different from the way Toyota manufactures its cars. And so we have to start the process now of getting ready for those opportunities. We don't want to be a city that's getting ready or will get ready. We want to be a city that's always ready.